Hi guys, welcome to our lesson for today. So today we're going to be looking at analyzing investments and loan options, right? So here we're going to look at when a bank gives you different investment options, what exactly do you need to do in order to take the best one? And what does it mean that this is the best investment? Those are such questions that we're going to try and answer. The other question is, if you are getting a loan, is it better to pay it in 5 years, in 15 years, or in 25 years? I don't know. We are going to try and calculate and see which one is the best option, because some people think to pay in a lesser time is better than in a longer time. We will look at them and try to make an informed decision. But for now, let's look at our leading question for this particular lesson. So the first thing that I want you to think about is, what is a pyramid scheme and how does this work, right? I know that we normally hear our parents or our siblings saying, yay, there's a scheme where if you pay 200 rands and then take maybe 5 people under you, then you will get a total of like 10,000 rand. You know, those kinds of things, right? What exactly are these things and how do they really work? That's what we're going to try and answer with one of the questions here. And then remember, we're going to analyze some loan options. We're also going to analyze investment options. And then lastly, we're going to look at the pyramid schemes. But for now, let's look at investment options. Now, the keywords under investment will be, you need to know what is an annuity. You need to know how to work with the compound interest, and then you also need to work with the future value annuity. Remember, annuities, these are payments that are made in regular intervals, right? Payments in regular intervals. I'll just say reg intervals, right? And then when you talk about the compound interest, this is normally interest on interest, right? Interest on interest. So meaning on interest. This simply means that whenever you are given a compound interest investment option, it means if I say 12% per annum, the first year you are going to get 12% of maybe 1,000 rand, if that's your initial investment. The second year you are going to get 12% of what you have at the end of first year, not the initial amount you started with, right? Even the third year, you're going to get 12% of what you have for the previous 2 years. So at all times, it's all about what you have in the bank and not what you started with to start the investment. So that's what I mean when I say interest on interest. Then, the last one is the future value annuity. Future value annuity, this is to make regular payments in order to move from 0 rands in your bank to an X amount of money in your bank, which is normally more than what you started with, right? That's what future value annuity is about. Remember, the formula that we use under future value is F is equals to X into 1 plus I all raised to n minus 1 divided by I, right? Where we know that F is our future value, X is the amount that is paid at regular intervals, N is the number of payments, and I is the interest rate as a decimal. So if I give you 5%, you need to divide it by 100 in order to do away with the percentage, and then write it as a decimal number, please. Now, whenever you are trying to evaluate an investment, these are the questions that you need to ask yourself. Do you need a lump sum when you are starting the investment, right? Is it an investment where you are just putting in maybe 100,000 and you are leaving it out like that, right? Or do you need to pay on a regular interval basis? Then the other thing is, what is the interest rate? This is the most important thing among all the other things that you actually need. Because if you don't know what interest you're getting, then honestly, we can't call it an investment, because then you don't know what your return is going to be. And then you also need to know what is the compounding period. Remember, compounding period is about how often you get interest, right? How often. Meaning if I say, excuse me, compounded monthly, it means you get it on a month-to-month basis, right? 12 times in a year. If they say semi-annually, that means it's every 6 months, so it's twice a year. If they say quarterly, there is 4 quarters in a year, so that means it's 4 times a year. If they say daily, it means 365. So those are just the options that I'm talking about when I say you need to understand what the compounding period is. And then what is the installments that need to be paid on a month-to-month basis? Because some investments, you start with a specific amount, maybe a minimum of 1,000 rand, right? And then thereafter you can make maybe payments of 250 after starting with the 1,000 rand as an initial amount that you need to deposit into your investment. The last thing will be, what is the expected payout? You don't just go to a bank or a financial institution and open an investment account without running the numbers just to see what is the expected. It might not be that because of inflation and all of those things, but at least it gives you an idea of what you need to expect after your investment. The keywords about compounding periods, remember I said it's annually, so this means once a year. And then quarterly means 4 times in a year. Biannually, which is the same as semi-annually, means twice a year. And then semi-annually and biannually, they mean one and the same thing, right? That's one of the things that you need to just be aware of, because they do use these terms when it comes to investments. Now, when you look at the concept of timelines, right? Some tips, you always need to make sure you start with T0. Now, this is the initial amount, right? Initial amount that you are depositing, that is deposited, right? In simple terms, when you, with the previous example that I just made of us paying an initial amount of 1,000 rand, and then paying 250. So it means at T0, you're going to draw an arrow going inside and then say this is 1,000 rand, right? Why is the arrow going inside? It's because this is a deposit. And then whenever a person then decides, maybe at the end of 2 years, I have an emergency, so I need to withdraw some money, then you will say maybe this is, let's say, 1,500. I'm sure maybe it would be that much by that time. Then they need to withdraw that 1,500, and then whatever that's remaining will be left in the bank to mature in the duration that is yet still to complete in terms of what is remaining. And then the last thing will be the time intervals. When I talk about the time intervals, sometimes you'll find that the interest for the first year is different from the interest that we get on the second year, which might be different with the interest that you're going to get for maybe the next 3 years, which will end up being 5 years, right? So in the 5 years of your investment, you can have maybe 5% here as the initial investment, and then maybe it goes to 7%, and then because of maybe the economy is a bit bad, and then they drop it and maybe to 6.5%, right? Because of maybe what is happening with our economy at the time. So this is very important, and I'm going to show you this with an actual question on how to apply this thing that I've just told you. Now, the very first question says, Percy invests 12,000 in a savings account and is given an interest rate of 10% per annum compounded quarterly for 3 years. What exactly is this? So it means when you want to analyze this, so we're firstly going to draw the timeline, right? And say T0, right? T0 will be, they said, 12,000. This will be 12,000, right? That is the initial amount that Percy is investing. And then this is given an interest of 10% for 3 years. So for 3 years until T3, it means this person is getting 10% compounded quarterly, which I'll just say CQ, right? And then we continue again. 2 years after the initial investment, he deposited a further 5,000 into the savings scheme. Now, let's understand what this means, right? We are still on this number line. So here by T2, this person decided to deposit an extra 5,000, maybe because they got a bonus or there is something that happened that gave them a bit of more money and they don't need it. They said, no, let's add it into the investment. Now, the interesting thing about this is we are then told that after 3 years of opening the investment, the interest changes to 10.8 till the start of the 4th year. In simple terms, from T3 to T4, the interest is 10.8. So T3 and T4, the interest here is a 10.8%. And then lastly, and this is on a biannually, right? So meaning twice a year. So I will say compounded semi-annually. I can just say compounded semi-annually like that. And then the last thing they say is he then decides to keep his money, invested for a further 2 years at an interest rate of 12% per annum compound interest. Now, let's understand this. From T4 up until T6, this person now gets 12% interest that we have. Now, if we show this on a timeline, this is how my investment is going to look like. So this line means that the 5,000 remains in the bank for the 4 years, right? The 12,000 remains in the bank for the whole duration. And then lastly, the interest changes as soon as you get to T3, and then it changes again when you get to T4. Now, you need to determine the investment after 6 years. Firstly, we need to look at the investment at the end of the 2 years, right? Because the interest changes after that, but not yet the interest, because it only changes on the 3rd year. So there's a new amount that is added. That's why we're only focusing until 2nd year. So remember, this is going to be A is equals to, firstly, we're going to look at what was the compounding period here for the first 2 years. The compounding period was compounded quarterly, right? So this simply means it's going to be AP into 1 plus I to the exponent of n. And this is 12,000 that we started with. This remained in the bank for 2 years at an interest of 10%, which is 0.1 divided by 4, because this is compounded quarterly, and this will be 2 multiplied by 4 up there. Why? Because in the 2 years, this person is getting the interest 8 times. Now, to calculate this, we will then go straight to the calculator, say 12,000 into 1 plus 0.1 divided by 4, all raised to the exponent of 8. Then you find what that is. So this person will now have 14,620. So this will be 14,620. I'm going to write the decimals as they are because we are not at the final answer. So this will be 83477. Let me just verify that's the correct one. Yes. And then now this is now the amount that this person has when we get to T2 here, right? But they added an additional 5,000. So in simple terms, we're going to look at what is the investment of the 2nd year up to the 3rd year, right? When the interest is still 10%. So remember, I had said A will be equals to P into 1 plus I to the exponent of n, right? And then this will be 14,620, and I think it's on the board there. So it will be this amount, which is 8347. You're going to add 5,000 to this because this person deposited 5,000. And then that will be my new principal value. So I will say answer into 1 plus 0.1 divided by 4. And this is for 1 year, so it will just be to the exponent of 4. And then now this person has 21,657. So 21,657, certain cents there, right? Now, we now need to look at from the 3rd year to the 4th year, because remember the interest changed to 10.8 in that year. So it's still the same amount. Nothing changes with the amount that we have here. So it will just be answer into 1 plus 0.108 divided by 4, or this is 2 because it was semi-annually, right? And then to the exponent of 2 multiplied by 1, which is just 2. Just remember that this is for semi-annually. And then the answer for this will be 24,059 rands and a couple of cents after that, right? This is now where? Now we are at T4. So we now need for the remainder of the investment, which is just for 2 years. So for 2 years will be the last amount that we're now going to do. We're just going to say this 24,001 plus the interest now is now 12%, rather, not was. So this is 0.12 divided by, they did not specify on what the compounding is, so I'm just going to say divide by 1, because if they don't say it, it means it's compounded annually, right? And this is to the exponent of, that is 2 years, so that will be 2. So this person will end up having 30,180 rands. So the answer to this will be 30,180. 180 and how many cents? 76 cents. And that's how you're then going to do it. But please make sure you understand that the time intervals of how the investment is structured matters the most, especially if the interest fluctuates, increases, decreases, and all of that. So you need to be sure on what are the time intervals. Guys, that was just the introduction of what a timeline is, which I know by now you're familiar with. But for now, I want us to take a quick ad break. Then when we come back, we're going to look at some more questions on loans to try and analyze some loans. Please stay tuned. I'll be back just now.